Welcome to the Review Crew podcast, uh, where we do a mixture of recent album reviews, discography tier lists, topical music discussions, debates, and more. I'm Dennis.
Hey, I'm Hattie.
And I'm Jack.
And today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the System of a Down discography and put them into a tier list. So System of a Down, just a brief discussion. If you don't know who System of a Down are, made up of four members: Serge Tankian, Darren Malakian, Shavo Dajian, and John Dolmayan, on vocals, guitar, bass, and drums, respectively. They have, how many albums? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 albums. Came out with their breakout albums, self-titled System of a Down in 1998. Toxicity came out in 2001 to critical acclaim. Steal This Album followed soon after that in 2002, and then a double album, Mesmerize, came out first in early 2005, and then 6 months later they dropped Hypnotize in 2005 as well. So we're going to be putting these albums on a tier list.
I was going to say, if you haven't heard of them, you're either too young or too old. This feels like one of the definitive bands that like Checkers a moment in time, but maybe that's because we're from the era.
Absolutely. So the System of a Down for me personally was my introduction to rock music. I think it was one of you guys that actually recommended it for me to listen to.
This is 100% one of those times. Same with Rage, where Hattie was recommending them to you for years, but you didn't listen to him to his dumbass. You waited until I told you they were good, and then you got into them.
There's a lot of bad blood that goes over 10 years ago with our music discovery journey.
It's definitely a sore thumb.
But I was gonna say it'd probably be interesting to actually like mention because Dennis, you say it was one of your first forays into like rock. Same for me. Like me, I think it was like maybe I was like year 7 at school. So what would it be? We'd been like 12
years old,
or something.
Yeah. For the US people.
I remember someone giving me this on CD. One of their albums on CD. I think it was Toxicity and what was it? Chili Peppers. And man, that was a game changer. Californication, I think, as well. What about you, Jack? When would you say you first discovered System? Were they one of the beginning?
I think with Steal This Album, because I remember Highway Song being an absolute beast of a track, and making me want to start learning drums. I don't know how old I would have been when I heard it, but yeah, from then
start of secondary school.
Yeah, was it 2000?
I think it's 2002.
Steal This Album was 2002, right?
Yeah, so I would have been like year 6, year 7,
right?
Crossover somewhere in between there. And then just worked my way backward through System.
Yeah, so it's a good intro band, I would say, despite the fact they're very odd, but still I find very accessible to someone that might not have much knowledge about kind of that world.
So we are going to be ranking all these albums on a list from greatest of all time down to what was the last one, Jack?
Let's go through each tier. Yeah, describe
so
the tiers again.
We have like mind-blowing, go greatest whatever, best possible, top tier. Then we have platinum record, gold record, scratched CD, and participant/shit ribbon.
Yeah, the participant ribbon. Yeah.
Okay, so let's kick off the discussion without further ado. So I guess I'll go first. I'll try and be quick with this. So starting with System of a Down, 1999, the self-titled. I put this in the gold tier, followed by Toxicity. I love this album.
Am I seeing just seeing Jack's reaction?
It's
Toxicity.
cool. I'll hold it. What's the rest of your list?
Toxicity, mind blowing. This to me was just them finding their feet and finding their voice. 2002, Steal This Album. I'll put this on platinum because consistency is it's not quite to the Toxicity level, but consistency is there.
This is where I'm either gonna you're gonna earn back your points with me, or I'm gonna have to come and set your house on fire.
With Mesmerize and Hypnotize.
Yeah.
All right.
And more specifically in relation to their self-titled.
All right. I will put Mesmerize on scratched CD.
Okay.
And I'll put Hypnotize on scratched CD as well.
Okay.
Getting an early insight into Jack's list right there.
Yeah.
Based on Dennis's list.
We'll get into this, but Jack, your opinions much from years ago flavored that. There's something that you said, a line that you said that echoes in my brain, and I'll get into it whenever I listen to these.
We'll get into the debate on each album coming up.
You've tantalized me, Dennis. I can't wait for that. Yeah.
Now you won't know.
I'm desperate. I'm desperate to get your list, Jack.
I can't wait to stay tuned in later to hear what Dennis has to say from me 10 years ago.
All right, Jack.
My list.
Give us your tier list.
So System of a Down, self-titled, mind-blowing.
Damn,
incredible
that's
album.
A hot take. All right,
it's a hot take.
I'll get more into it later. For me,
yeah,
it's the most system album. Toxicity.
At least in name.
yeah, that's what I've gone off. Isn't that what you guys did? How many times they say their own name?
Yeah. So yeah. Jack's theory is if they do a self-titled album, instantly it's GOAT.
That's why every Pitbull album is the best one ever.
Yeah, and Run the Jewels have had the best discography of all time.
Toxicity, Platt, easy Platt.
This is blowing my mind.
For a long time, I had a lot of between tiers. So I had a lot of Platt mind blown slashed in my thing, and I had to cut them, be a bit brutal, and put one
I
side
had
or
one
the
or
other.
two that were like 0.5s like that too. Yeah.
Steal This Album, in my second mind blowing album from System. It's good. It's real good. This put me in a slight predicament when it came to Mesmerize and Hypnotize, okay? So I have Mesmerize... Oh, I've just moved them all. Let me... Noob streamer. Mesmerize, scratch CD. Hypnotize, gold. That's it, I'm done.
I'm just looking over the list. I'm mad and I'm not mad at both of this.
I feel like we'll get a lot of similarities with Tyler, where we'll get the general shape that other people had, but we'll get into the weeds of the individual picks.
Definitely. I mean, I think looking at the list so far, I think you're a bit. Your takes are a bit hotter than Dennis's, but anyway, all right. You ready for my list?
Go for it.
We'll get into it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, self-titled. I'm going to put this in gold tier. All right.
Gold, same as me.
Yeah. Then going on to Toxicity. Actually, something I want to say beforehand. That's fine. Keep it in that tier. Something I want to say beforehand. Now, my tier list might be a little more slimlined, but this is because I think there's too many warts on either side to push things all the way. But anyway, Toxicity, platinum tier, 100%. That was an easy choice. Steal This Album, and this is almost mind blown. But there were, like I said, there were just a few things that dragged it down a bit. So I would also put this in platinum.
Do you not think they've released a mind blowing album? Because I know for a fact you ain't about to put Mesmerize or Hypnotize in there.
Hang on, listen. No. So upon listening now, I think there's too many flaws on each album for anything to go mind blown. So yes, I'm sorry. Although all caveat, if I had to choose, Steal This Album would probably be my favorite. Okay. But anyway, last two. So Mesmerize, Scratch CD. So same as you guys. Okay. It was hard to differentiate between these two actually, but again, in the context relative to the self-titled, I've got to put Hypnotize and Scratch CD as well.
I do think it's crazy that the album with BYOB, Revenger, and Ziguro is a Scratch CD for all of us.
Well, here's the thing, and again, we'll get into it, but with the two newer albums, the things I liked and disliked between both of them were like almost opposite. But as an overall quality, they were very similar for me. So yeah, that's my list.
Okay. I think you're smoking more crack than Dennis, because
for not having a mind blown album.
No, you've not put anything like.
Listen, Steal This Album had the potential to be a mind blown album. It had the potential, but there's just a few things that brought it short.
Well, without digressing too much, let's dive into it. Let's dive into the first System of a Down self-titled album to begin with. Now, this album came out 1998. Now, I just want to read a line from Victims of a Down, which is a poem by Darren Balakian, which is where they get their name from. The line goes, "The hand has 5 fingers, capable and powerful, with the ability to destroy as well as create." I think that's got something to do with the album cover, which is what Hattie has behind him there. I assume it's got something to do with the hand being on there. So, System of a Down. I did like this album. I put this album at gold. Now, I had initially put this album at plat, but I then moved it down. Well, mostly because from a previous tier list, Hattie did mention that he wanted to stretch out the albums a little bit more.
I went completely against my last rule. Fuck things. But like I said, we'll get into it. But it was just too much to stop things from being top tier. But anyway, sorry, Dennis. Go on.
I was really surprised for you to say that there were flaws on so many of their albums. I'm curious to see what those flaws are.
I would have had a different opinion when I was 12, 13, and it was one of the first albums. But like now, in the context of life, that's where things had to like reshape.
I got that so much as well. Like when I was younger, it's almost like the messages were almost just going completely over my head, and I was just paying more attention to, I guess, the music of it.
Your mind is literally blown. That's the thing. When you hear like music like this for the first time, it is like such like a what the fuck moment. Like compared to if up until that point all you're listening to is what you've heard on like the radio or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the places that System of a Down go to in general, and they've pretty consistently gone there. They go to politics, spirituality, culture, and society. They're going deep. And when you're 16 years old, you're not really thinking about that. Most of what you're thinking about is between your legs.
But it makes you feel deep.
Yeah.
Even if you're not fully absorbing it.
Yeah, so I thought this album was a bit rough, a bit punkish, but I also thought that was sort of where the charm was. But you could also sort of see where the quality of their playing and their writing was still there. So Hattie, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I was going to say, because Jack's got the biggest difference of opinion. Me and you are kind of on the same wavelength. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear Jack's last. But yeah, so I agree with all of your points. It's a very dark, rough album. It has like a raw feel, which could be good for some and bad for others. I think part of the charm is in that kind of like I said, kind of rougher production, but it doesn't necessarily hold up for me as much listening to the following two albums, in terms of like replayability. But I mean, there's a lot I like on here. In terms of what brought it down for me, potentially some of the musical diversity. So again, when you compare to some of the newer albums, they're experimenting with so many different kind of genres, and tracks are like shifting into completely new elements here and there, and that's something I really love about System. This album's more, I don't know, it has more of a kind of traditional feel to it, even though I wouldn't describe System as traditional in any way. If it was going to pick one that kind of fit a mold, it would be this. One element that I think didn't fit the mold at all, though, was kind of Serge's vocals. I found Serge was kind of almost like at his craziest on this album, and kind of, even though the instrumentals were kind of maybe more straightforward, his voice is all over the place in terms of being like low, growling, high pitched, and just switching all over the place. That was something that I found really interesting re-listening to this compared to newer albums. That was kind of an emphasis for me. But I like it. It's a really good album. Like I said, it just lacks a bit of diversity, especially in the latter half, that brings it down a bit for me.
You think he has more dynamics in this album than later on? Because later on he goes all the way from death metal growling to singing.
I think there's.
Do you think this?
It's more.
Sorry, do you think this lacks diversity compared to their other albums?
Yes, in terms of blending lots of genres into one, it's less than on a lot of the other albums. Not that it doesn't have diversity, but there's just a few tracks, like I said, in the latter half that kind of run together and aren't that memorable. I mean, I'll give examples. So, Devil, Mind, Qbert, all of these tracks.
What? Dude, Mind and Qbert are two of the best songs on the album.
Not for me, man. Yeah,
they're
just
actually crazy.
Yeah, it starts off really strong, and obviously we'll get into our top threes. It starts off really strong and finishes great. Pluck as the last track is fucking, but that kind of latter half didn't do as much for me, which is what brought it down. Anyway, that's my general thoughts. Like I said, I'm very much similar to everything that you kind of said, Dennis. So yeah, Jack, defend it, argue the case for it being the best.
Okay.
Wait, I presume is it the best if you had to like grade it between that and Steal This Album? Do you have?
Probably I would side with. I'd probably listen to more songs off this. But it's real close.
Steal This Album is so good. Anyway,
it's like one song difference between what I've got in my top 3 and honorable mentions. So I probably wouldn't even feel comfortable cutting it, to be fair.
Yeah, I didn't know whether to put Steal This or this in Plat, but I ended up going with Steal This because I thought the later efforts was a bit more polished, and that polish just you can hear the songs a bit better.
Steal This is the perfect example of an album that incorporates so many different elements so well. Again, we will get to it when we come to it, but that's a perfect example by comparison where this album almost sounds bland comparatively. It's not bland. Comparatively, it almost sounds bland. But come on, Jack, go.
Okay, but like you're also later on, you're going to rely on the argument that Hypnotize and Mesmerize have too much going on.
You're predicting my opinions.
I know you are. I know you are.
All right.
100. Okay, so
I've got my reasons. We'll get to
so them. This album, yeah. Like we're talking about Bungle a couple of weeks ago, yeah. Bungle, when these EPs and stuff, yeah, coming out with like thrash metal before they came out with their first full album outing. This is like, it's getting there for a Bungle in terms of like different tones of songs, different like. System have the thing where like even if it's not a complete genre homage, it's like they're pulling so many elements all constantly. So stuff like Sugar and Devil,
Sugar for sure.
they're still rock songs, but only in the foundation. Everything that they've layered on top of that is such a unique take on the elements that they started with. But then they've already got all of the massive choruses and like the big, huge, like grinding energy that they'll have for Toxicity and Steal This. Like No, the fucking chorus in No.
Oh, I thought you were saying no as in like no to our opinions.
Oh, no. I mean,
as opposed to not KN.
That too, but also KNOW.
Okay, yeah. That's a great track. That's
the first time you're there and you're got the
drums, bro.
The verse is cool, but then you get into the that blasting through your eardrums as a little teenager, not knowing what's wrong and right with the world.
Yeah.
What can I say? But then jumping from that to like, Qbert, you might not be a fan, but the world it creates within a 3 or 4 minute song. Have a look. Or not even 2 minute song. I knew I was wrong. Didn't know how much. The world it creates with that lyricism of the like catch the people. I don't want to misquote it. Give me a sec.
Yeah, Qbert is probably like the weakest track for me. I really it's just got such an annoying melody. The ding 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 ding. It's just
I can really kind of get that, but like
it grated on me.
The way that the way they present humanity in it with stuff like the humans everywhere canned, the cliche people, all this sort of like, and then the title itself to me is very like robotic sounding, almost like AI. That's always led me to this kind of world where there's a really twisted mechanical creature called Qbert who's gone haywire and he's trying to harvest humans for their organs. But it's like, you know what I mean? That's a minute 49 and some very confusing lyrics, which is something we'll come back to a lot of times. But that's like that's such a rich reward for just like thinking about that tiny bit of music. And they've got other stuff on this album like Mind, where it's much more handed to you as the like, hey, here's the really interesting part of what we're talking about. But yeah, there's so much there to go look for, and spiders and stuff. This is also, I think, obviously they are Armenian, and they have a lot to say politically, and they've gone back and forth between Armenian politics and American politics once they moved to America. But this is like a lot of their lyrical content here is the message they had to say in the beginning, and it's the message that brought them together and made them want to make music. And you
mean more focusing on the Armenian side of things before kind of delving into kind of American, because that's something that really came to the forefront, I would say, on Steal This album. Well, on Toxicity, but Steal This album, I would say, was more the like most overtly political album, at least in terms of like American politics.
Yeah,
but I can see obviously that this is that kind of roots, and it is more like mystified as opposed to being at the forefront.
I'm this is my least happy part of your lists, but
ranking this so low to you.
I'm now seeing that the jump between Gold Record and Scratch CD is it's not a step, it's a jump. So maybe that's something we should address. Or no, I don't want to change my list. No, I'm happy with mine. But yeah.
Should we wrap this up? Do top tracks?
Sure. Yeah. So, Hattie, give us your top 3 tracks from this album.
Yeah. So, favorites from this album, I would say Suggestions. I can love that track. Spiders as well. I'm just vibing with the kind of mellow, depressing. Well, not mellow, but you know what I mean. The kind of more like dark, brooding songs. One song that isn't dark and brooding though is "Soil," which is my third favorite. That track's heavy as fuck. Love the groove. So yes, suggestions, spiders, and soil. All the yeses.
Strangely enough, none of those songs are in my top three. I would go with No, Devil, and Sugar, actually, which is interesting. Jack, is there any overlap in the Venn diagram of your favorite top three songs?
Yeah. So I need to bring in some honorable mentions for my two mind blown albums as well. I'm sorry to break the format, but top three: Cuba, Spiders, Mind, and shake your dirty little head down there with your S's. Yeah. Honorable mentions:
Spiders is the best track of the album, though, right? Epic. That track.
Honorable mentions: Peephole, Soil, and Suggestions. So, I got you back there.
Right.
And No in my honorable mentions as well. It's just there's more tracks on this album that are bangers that aren't. So it's tough to pick.
It's a very solid album. It's a good track list. It's
minimum filler, which is not something that can be said for all of their albums.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. There's other albums where I would point out more distinct filler tracks or almost like throwaway tracks. But like I said, it's just the kind of slight lack of diversity that brings this down, even though there aren't bad songs per se.
Any final thoughts on this album?
Listen to it.
Yeah, it's a good entry point. Wasn't my entry point. I mean, another thing, maybe that's kind of skewed our thoughts, because I know me and you, Dennis, we mentioned, what was it, Toxicity was our first listen, but Jack, you actually, did you say, oh no, it's still this album you started with? Sorry, I thought because you listened to it a bit before us that you had the debut on. In my head, I was just thinking maybe that would have given you a better association with them. But this definitely wasn't the first album I listened to from them. So
yeah, Mesmerize was actually the first album that I listened to from them. Obviously, with that entry point of Cigar. I know, right? I know. So I've
you talk about the scratch CD. You talk about the universal scratch CD.
Literally.
I guess that's probably got more to do with just the era than anything else, though.
BYOB, right? That would have been that record was so huge.
Because I was 9 when some of these albums came out, so by the time I was ready to actually listen to them, and it was around the Mesmerize era.
Yeah. Right. All right, let's move on.
So next album, Toxicity, 2001. Now I really like this album. Obviously, put it in mind blowing, because I thought this was really System finding their voice. I thought this is. Basically, they haven't changed what they're talking about. They're still talking about spirituality, cultural commentary, etc. But it's like we're watching a band grow up, but it's not in the way that it's not the same as sort of when you do the Tyler tier list, where he's growing up and he's like actually growing up. So he's actually like becoming.
Right, they're adults.
Yeah, they're adults. They're already mature.
Grown-ass men.
And it's like they found that they've gotten better at delivering their message in the
they're not necessarily changing as people. It's just the way that they deliver what's always in them is more refined.
And that's actually quite consistent throughout the albums, but something that I think it did change slightly, because there's a fine balance there between is the message more important, or is the music more important? Like, are we like a band that like a rock band with that sings about a message, or are we delivering a message in the guise of a rock band? And I think at some point that balance tips. But
where would you put them on that scale?
At this point, on Toxicity, it's still like we make great music, and that music just has this political, cultural, societal message. So,
so you're saying the message isn't the priority?
not at this point.
Okay.
But I think the balance shifts
Okay.
as they go on. Hence, scratch CD, etc. Anyway,
Yeah.
Jack, tell us your thoughts on Toxicity.
Because I want to say on this, like, putting this below their putting this album below the self-titled is fucking crazy. Anyway, Jack, go on.
I have no idea what was going through your mind.
Toxicity, bro.
Aerials, bro.
For the same like thing that we seem to mention every week, yet never cover a punk album. I like shit that doesn't sound like it's been fucking produced and they've had a team of guys working on it. Yeah, like it's different if it's hip hop, yeah, or like stuff in that genre space. Yeah. So for Tyler, as his production gets better, as he starts choosing, like, better quality VSTs for his sounds, nothing but a bonus. When he gets, however many, when Gorillaz have however many people helping production and spending as that long doing it to make really clean tracks, nothing but a benefit. For rock and metal and anything like that, there's so much to be said for that earnest, you're just in a dirty club with this band in front of you, hand delivering you stuff through an amp, like that feeling you get from albums.
I agree with that to a certain extent. I would probably say like this album is probably like the peak production in terms of it had a nice balance between being quite raw but having a little bit of polish. Some problems I have with the newer albums are that they push that polished, clean element too far. So I do share your sentiment to a degree. But this album is the perfect balance production-wise. Even though I prefer Steal this album, I think this is probably the best sounding album. But
this was originally a Mind Blown / Plat in my
right. So you're gonna have 3 potential Mind Blowns at some point.
Well, that's when I knew I had a problem. When I listened to the first 3 albums, and I was like, I can't just have a line at the top and then a line at the bottom.
Right.
So I had to
an
spread
equal
them out.
sign tier list.
Yeah, but it's it's really close. I love songs on this album. I love riffs from this album. Toxicity and Chop Suey, probably like the first 2 songs I learned to play on the guitar from them. So,
and I would say the riff work is so consistent throughout all of their albums. They have such great riffs.
Yeah, it's a similar thing to Rage. To pick a similar era band, where it's like they have a style where you can recognize one of their songs quite quickly, and it's not too complicated, so you don't have to spend ages breaking it down in your mind. It's literally like it happens, and as it happens, you're there with them.
I wouldn't necessarily like put. I think not almost like one of their weaker elements for me is the kind of riffs. There are a lot of great sounding riffs, but I don't think it's an element that I'm really drawn to them. And I would say comparing Darren as a guitarist to Tom Morello as a guitarist is a bad comparison, because Tom Morello smokes. Darren is just a competent guitarist.
I wouldn't like. I'm not saying that they've made equal contributions to the frontier of guitar playing. But I just mean if you listen to Bulls on Parade and then you listen to BYOB, you can make more comparisons than differences in terms of like the technicality of the riffs and the simple.
You're picking their like best riff song versus probably one of Rage's most overrated song.
All right, pick another Rage song.
I don't know, Bomb Track, Know Your Enemy, anything off that first album. We should do a Rage tier list, by the way. They don't have many, but it'd be interesting to do that.
Yeah,
we should.
A good idea.
Put it in a bank.
I mean, I'm looking at Mesmerize, which for me is probably their weakest album, and their first 3 tracks, ignoring the intro, have heavy, simple, memorable riffs straight out the gate.
The riffs aren't bad. It's just not necessary. There are so many like rock and metal bands that I got into when I was younger that I gravitated towards the guitar, and System, it wasn't for System. It was more kind of like the element of the incorporating like the Eastern kind of sounds and different instruments and surges of vocalists. It was just the guitarists weren't the forefront for me. Not to say that they're like bad.
No,
you know what I mean?
Not for me
it's
either.
not a standout
but,
element. Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
It does the job.
Yeah.
So, Hattie, what made you put this in platinum?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's. I knew in my head that this wasn't going to be, or Steal This album was better for me, and so I had to have that at the top. But then upon a re-listen, it's just fucking consistent. I can see how. I mean, this is considered their like magnum opus, right? This is the general consensus, and I totally understand that. I feel like this is like agreeing with what you said, Dennis. This is a refinement of the self-titled sound. It kind of feels like a step up. Step up in terms of production, while not being too clean. There's a little bit of polish in there that kind of makes it something that I want to gravitate towards a bit more. In a way, it kind of tones down the kind of weirdness of the first album. It's still weird, like all their albums are like weird, but I think it tones that down a little bit and increases kind of like I said, increases the political message, increases like there's more kind of deep like emotional songs on it that again I'm going to gravitate towards, and my favorite tracks are those ones that kind of, I don't know, are very reflective. So and another element which I would say makes this one of their best, it's got the perfect level of the perfect amount of Darren's vocals. More than any other album. So on the first album, Darren maybe has vocals on a few tracks, maybe a little background thing. On this, there's more. He sings the odd bridge, and he's basically doing chorus background vocals. Pretty much every song. That's perfect, and the contrast with Surge is perfect. Again, what fucked things on the new albums is that he took over vocally. Yeah. So I like background vocals, Darren, odd bridge or odd verse, Darren. The perfect balance, but Serge is the clear lead singer, and this album showcases that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got one of the most unique like lead singers in rock, and then you're sort of going, hold my beer. I'm gonna jump in on this track.
Yeah, well, like Darren on his own it can be so annoying. There's the odd like all of his like solo like singing on here is not much, but I enjoy it. But on the new albums, like when it's like him leading the song, it's fucking grating. And it's weird because when he's like harmonizing with Serge, it's fucking good. It's just like I said, when he takes the lead on the newer records, it really like fucking grinds my gears. So yeah, perfect balance. It was good. It was good that he had more of like a singing presence on this album. It's not like I dislike him completely. That's one of the things that makes me prefer this over self-titled. But yeah, it was a good balance. I mean, the only thing, there's a few tracks that I'm not that hot on. I don't really like Jet Pilot or Bounce. Again, they're kind of like goofy. I don't know. They're a bit too like silly for me these days. And I could argue maybe the album starts off a bit slow. I'd probably say, even though I like Prison Song, Needles, etc., it doesn't really like get really good for me until Chop Suey comes in. Obviously minus Bounce, but Chop Suey, Forest, Atlas. That like the latter half of this album, mid to late, is when it really picks up.
Yeah, I agree. Chop Suey to Aerials is like the prime. But yes, one of the things they've always had, strong ass album openings until they lost their minds.
What with Prison Song?
That just not even like necessarily the entire song, but just to start an album with boom.
Yeah, it's a good opener.
Boom, 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 boom. Like it went back in the day. You're sat there with your CD player, being like, "Did it skip? Did I like?
Yeah.
Have I opened it somehow? What am I doing?"
Yeah. No, I agree. I think probably Needles to X, that 4-track run isn't one of the best moments. So that's why I feel it gets slow. I'll give Prison Song a very good start. Really don't like Jet Pilot personally. But yeah, like I said, yeah.
What?
Chop Suey onwards. Again.
To be honest, like right now, I'd listen to Jet Pilot over Chop Suey.
Same.
I think that's probably due to saturation. But there's a lot of tracks I'd listen to over Chop Suey.
Yeah, especially for our generation. Like I think that was almost always played like at a party or something.
They still play it in Purple Turtle.
Yeah, I mean, Jet Pilots. It's just a bit too much of like the coarse, like rough element of System of a Down that I don't like it. It's not a good version of them having that kind of style or that element of their sound for me.
I don't know. I disagree. I think it's got a good like a good balance between those elements. I think it's got nice vocal delivery, but it's not too like, you don't have to sit back and be like, oh, Serge is being Serge again. You get to just like enjoy the tone of his voice.
So that's a good segue into our top three. Jack, give us your top three for Toxicity.
I have Toxicity, Forest, and Aerials. I would have probably put in honorable mentions, but I decided not to do them. Then I went and listened to Steal This Album and decided to do them again.
Forest is an interesting one. I didn't put Forest in there at all. But I'm with you with the other one. So my top three is Toxicity, Aerials, and Psycho. Psycho is in there because of what Hattie mentioned. In that, I found this song on listening to it again. I found it actually quite sad because it's almost like the subject of this song was almost like a specific person. Like I could picture them in my mind. I could picture like I thought it was about like say like a young girl who came over to California with hopes of becoming a movie star, and basically was just churned up by the studio system and trying to get fame and all of that. And so I thought there's probably thousands of women just like this.
Matches the kind of parody cover, right? It's like a good track to kind of go along with the kind of Hollywood imagery.
I was gonna say it's the better version of Lost in and old school Hollywood.
Yeah. It's not one of my top threes, but yeah, I love in Psycho. I love the kind of the chill verse with just and then it gets it goes proper into it with the chorus. That's a great shout on that track, Dennis. Not one I would have thought of, but it's fucking sick.
Yeah, what's your top three?
Yeah. Okay. So my top three, I'm probably gonna have to put Chop Suey in there. I mean, I know it's overplayed, but it's overplayed for a reason. And I'm just thinking about the just the music. I'm just thinking about the music video in my head, and yeah, it is giving me some like nostalgia that I can't shed. It's just a really fucking well made track. Definitely overplayed, but just class. Forest as well. Like, do you guys first put Forest in there?
No, Jack did. I didn't put it in there.
Dude, Forest is probably like the best track on the album.
We finally agree on something.
Why can't you do that you want? It's just so fucking good, man. So again,
the way that pairs with the guitar as well.
Yes. It's, again, when System are in their like emotional bag, that's hitting the spot, and like Serge has just got that like fist pumping like approach. It's just so good.
So that's another reason why I put this in mind blowing, because there's so many songs you can pull from on this album, which are like your favorites that you put in like a constant rotation.
There is. I just knew personally from like experience that Steal This Album had to be my favorite. That's why, just because again fondness. But no, like I said, again, to reiterate, I completely if anyone says this is the best album, I completely understand. So my third track is Aerials. Again, fucking banger. One of the slower tracks on the album. Again, just emotional, deep. It's fucking great.
Actually, with Aerials, I didn't want to include it.
Why?
Just because I had Toxicity as my top one. I was like, right, I want to find like a deeper cut because it's a 15-track album, and like you're saying, like I think there's even less filler than Hattie does. So like it's a good spread. But then on re-listening to Aerials again, on re-listening to Aerials again, I've just got to chuck it in. It's such a fucking banger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I back in the days I used to bang Aerials. That was like my favorite track, even better than Toxicity. I found, just because I love it when System go like chilled. I love it when they tone it down a little bit and they go clean. I love both sides of clean, the clean and the heavy side, but because so many of their albums are so heavy, it makes their clean songs stand out so much.
Yes. Well, yeah, when they've bombarded you and then they come in with that kind of sound to just put you in a place where you're just kind of meditative almost. It's great. It's like that reprieve before you're going to get hit again.
And this happens at the end of the album as well. So like, it sends you off in this dreamy state, which is great.
I had a beef re-listening. I quite like it from a musical aspect, but I had a beef re-listening to Science I really didn't like the lyrical content of that.
It sounds a
Really?
bit preachy. It sounds a bit pretentious.
It just sounds really preachy and pretentious, kind of like trying to kind of. I guess it's just coming from the perspective of being like someone who's like quite like an atheist, just having that kind of like, you know, oh, science has failed on Mother Earth. You know, the important thing is faith. To me, I'm just like rolling my eyes.
See what I mean? It's the kind of thing that someone who has a tie-dye t-shirt and
yeah, it just seems very, again, we're talking about on the nose. It just seems very like, yeah, just preachy and not pushing like a good message. But this is going to be a conflict. You're never going to win, you know, between people that are religious and not. So
as I wouldn't say I've listened to the lyrics so deeply, but the delivery of that track, I find this. I find this
it's great sounding. Yeah.
Yeah, where like I
it's just the
often have
lyrics that have
to
beef.
look at the lyric. I have to consciously decide to go and look at the lyrics independently of listening to it, because when I am listening to it, I'm so caught up in what they've delivered musically that I just can't like process it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that as well. Especially if you factor in the nostalgia factor, that it just you can't really properly understand the lyrics because you're just getting bombarded with these old feelings that you had. I found. Did we? I can't remember. Did we go to you for an opinion on toxicity, Jack?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
All right.
I think
if anyone has any final things to say.
No.
Oh, actually, I wanted to ask. Do you guys agree with me on the perfect level of Darren and Serge vocals? Do you agree that they found the best balance here?
Yeah, I'm going to spoil my my thing that Jack said to me years back. That spoiled Mesmerize and Hypnotize for me, which is that I quite liked these albums. And then Jack just, I think it was at lunchtime at school, Jack was just like, I don't like how much the guitarist is singing nowadays. And I didn't even notice it beforehand. I guess I just kind of filtered it out. But as soon as you pointed it out, it's like it's an hour before. Yeah.
When you have the journey of listening to this and steal this album, and then like I literally, Mesmerize and Hypnotize came out, and then I re-listened to them. I was like, what the fuck is this shit? I mean, I loved lots of it, but like, when you're like Darren track, it's like, what the fuck is he doing? Where is Serge?
Yeah, exactly. Especially since I bumped the double album. That was like my introduction to System, and then I slowly started to listen to like the back catalog. So when Jack mentioned that, and I was like slowly like expanding it, I was just like, oh shit, like their previous stuff is so much better than this crap.
Yeah, so your experience would have been like, oh, there's like two lead singers, and then when you went back, you're like, oh no, there isn't. There's one lead singer, but then
I was like, oh, I guess this is System, and then later on is like, oh wait, no, actually, they actually changed.
Yeah, it's always going to be like the order you listen is going to be so important, and that will it's interesting because we're gonna obviously talk about that in our next discussion. So this is a perfect example of why the entry point has a big influence on what you like, what you dislike.
Yeah,
it's fucking insane to find yourself in a band with Serge Tankian and go, nah, pass me that mic, bruh.
Yeah,
like, in what world?
It's got to be one of the biggest contributing factors to the breakup, right?
Apparently, like I've not done enough research into it. I've only seen like tabloidy sort of stuff about it, but apparently Serge didn't want to make Mesmerize and Hypnotize.
Yeah. Well, when you've made those three records and then you go into that, it's weaker.
I do think though, weaker. Like if I was thinking about this as I re-listened to them, to be fair, if they just had those three albums, I feel like they would be in a position of shows like Firefly, where they'd have all this like cult following and stuff, even more so than they have now. People would be like, make another album. Why didn't they do any more? How do we only have this? At least when they released this bit, it was like they broke up with us, but they let us know there's like, you've always got the good stuff that was back there if you want it, but like we're not in the same place anymore.
Yeah, they definitely didn't. I don't want to say didn't go out with a bang, but yeah, it's like that kind of turn in the road and then you exit, as opposed to just sun stop.
Yeah.
So next album, Steal This Album, 2002. Now, I had this at platinum because it was between this and the self-titled, and I chose this just because it's got that bit of a polished sound. But I didn't put. I almost put this at mind blowing, but I didn't put this at mind blowing because I found that it was just a bit more toned down. You mentioned, Hattie, that go, like going from self-titled to toxicity, they were toned down. I feel as though going from toxicity to this, they were even a little bit more toned down.
What is in the musical elements? Or
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
Just found it just a little bit less heavy.
Okay.
The drums
it's less heavy. Yeah, it's the least heavy album to this point, right?
Yeah, the drums are a little bit less heavy. The tempos are a little bit more slower. If you listen to, I did this. I listened to like Steal This, and then I listened to self-titled, and it's self-titled is like Steal This on crack. It's like it's so much more up tempo. Obviously,
Toxicity does function very well as a kind of pivot point between the sounds of those two albums. But yes, self-titled and Steal This album side by side are night and day in terms of production. Kind of. Almost like kind of sub-genres.
Yeah. I don't know what you guys thought as well. I almost felt as though they started to sound a bit like a, forgive the pun, broken record. In that it's like it's almost like it's just more of the same. It's they're not really. It doesn't seem as though they're bringing you anything that you haven't heard before, because we already have two System albums to draw from. We already know what their style is.
Can I remind you, you put this in platinum tier.
You're going pretty hard right now.
Yeah. I should be mad at your criticism as it's my favorite, but
at this point,
you still said it was your second favorite.
I know. At this point, I'm just looking for bad things to say about it. But at the same time, I bumped to this album from beginning to end. It is sick.
I think the fact that all of the songs are so short, and when there are like wildly different ideas, they're not as commonly embedded within a song as they are on the other two albums. When they because they'll have stuff where they I forget the real name of it, but they cut to like not a waltz, but like the music, and it's not something that's revisited, and it's not like something but we're on Steal This album, you've got just random stuff like 36, which is 46 seconds long, and Bubbles, which is a 2-minute song. They're completely separated from the tones that are either side of them, but I think it has less impact on a continuous listen because of that, especially if you're cognitive of the different tracks.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't necessarily flow as well as the first two albums. Like I said, self-titled almost it had points where it flowed and got monotonous for me. But on this album, kind of again, one of the things I really like about it is the kind of diversity and how it does incorporate those elements that kind of venture into those far out places. But
I do want to hear your opinion on it. But I've noticed that Jack put this in mind blowing. So Jack, I'm curious.
Fuck yeah.
Why did you put this on mind blowing?
Because Highway Song is a banging fucking song to drum along to.
It made you want to pick up drums, so yeah, fuck yeah.
That is one of their all-time best tracks.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's got a lot of the elements that make System amazing. In terms of it's got the rock drums that have are more relaxed and almost it's not quite funk. It's definitely still rock, but it's played with more hitting those offbeat syncopations more commonly and stuff to give it a bit more groove. Loads of interesting rhythms, but they've gone back to having this complete free for all with just random fucking voices coming in and let's write a song about fucking ordering pizza, and it's amazing. Oh, by the way, I now use that pepperoni, angry peppers, mushrooms, olives, chives. I use that as a vocal warm up when I do singing clubs and stuff now. because they don't know it's System of a Down, and it makes me laugh what I do with Year Sevens. But it's also
I was going to say that's a top difficulty tier vocal warm up doing Surge lines.
There's another one in that song. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's something about it's like a variation on the Peter Pickled Peckers stuff.
Oh, is that isn't that IAIAO?
Yeah, you might be right. Which is also, did you know that IEAIEIEIO is idealization with the most of the letters taken out?
Consonants taken out.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Great fucking track though.
Yeah.
Fantastic fucking track.
The line is Peter's pecker picked another pickle-bearing pussy pepper. Peter's pepper picked another pickle-bearing pussy pepper. Why?
Yeah, he's kind of like doing a almost like a rap thing there.
Yeah, how he when I heard this, like listening to it again, I was just like, how did he nail this in the studio? How many takes did this take? And like, can he do this live? Like, Jesus Christ, that is a tongue twister to end all tongue twisters.
I have zero doubt in Surge.
Neither do I.
And also imagine, I assume, to be fair, I don't know for a fact, having never met the fella, but I assume that he's doing all this in his second language.
I can argue a case for this being the best album.
Even though you put it on plat.
Well, yeah, I will also explain why I didn't give it Mind Blown, but I will argue the case why this is arguably the best album. So
give us your hot take then. What did you think of this album?
It's not even a hot take. I mean, it's mirroring a lot of things you guys have already said. This album is so fucking good. Well, the majority of it is so fucking good. Like when it hits the highs are probably bigger than any of the other albums for me. I loved the fact it was kind of more melodic, had a more kind of stripped down feel, and it wasn't as like, you know, like heavy, or you know, it's almost like they replaced almost a lot of the heavy elements with more kind of incorporating more kind of like Eastern sounds. There were like strings in places. It was a very like an emotional album, probably like their most like emotional album, which again is what I'm going to gravitate towards. It's just fucking good. It's just so fucking good. The in terms of the things that brought it down from being like top tier in general, there's a few it's just there's just a handful of tracks that are a bit too silly at times. Again, we just mentioned like 36, Fuck the System, not that hot. Yeah.
What is wrong with you? Fuck the System's one of the top 3 tracks on the album. I don't care what you have to say.
Not for me.
Yeah, not for me either.
I'm not that hot on Chicken Stew.
You guys have no fun in your hearts.
Yeah, and I'm not that hot on Chicken Stew, even though in the second half it breaks down and it's kind of got almost like a jazzy drum. It's like advertisers got you on the run. I love that bit, but I'm not. I don't know.
As a whole track, I don't think Chicken Stew's that strong, but I love what it represents about their character and their decision about this album.
It's gonna be a sound that you'll never get rid of, but it's not necessarily the elements that I would always gravitate towards. But I would probably say again, if I took away 3 or 4 tracks like the ones I mentioned, it would 100% categorically be above Toxicity and then potentially move into God tier. But yeah, you know, it's going to be for me, it's going to be incorporation of all the different sounds and styles. Like I said, you've got tracks where Surge is rapping, you've got tracks that sound jazzy, you've got strings, you've got kind of Eastern instruments. It's a very like maximized album that incorporates so much, and I fucking love that. And again, it allows it to be so replayable.
It's less of a cookie cutter rock album like self-titled.
Yeah,
and much more of an interesting.
Yeah, and they've. It's more interesting. I wouldn't say. I would
never use the word cookie cutter.
No. What I meant was that's more something that you would find in the rock and metal section of HMV or something, rather than this.
it's definitely more experimental, and it goes into the lighter kind of side of them, which I like. Yeah,
I think because this explores the lighter side of it, it's more like, I think this is more commercially acceptable. Obviously, like Toxicity's they're top of the mountain in terms of
their pop album.
Yeah, but then I don't think this is far behind. But I would even probably put Mesmerize above in terms of
by far, Mesmerize is the most like clean, accessible album.
But no, not literally in like listening to it and having. I think in like public opinion, okay. I think people put Mesmerize higher than Steal This Album in like what they would.
Yeah, well, I think this album is generally considered to be like the weakest. I think, which again drives my love for it, because people don't seem to give a shit.
There was so much shit about it being B-sides from Toxicity when it got leaked. I also was slightly disappointed. Yeah.
If this is B-sides, god damn.
It's like it's not, because who the fuck has 16 B-sides? But by the since I first learned about the Chicago 7, I thought that this album was a like, I thought it was titled after Steal This Book, which is a book one of them wrote after or everything that happened to them. And I went through it. I've recently discovered in this research for doing it just now that it's because their album got leaked ahead of release is why they named it Steal This Album.
Who are the Chicago 7, sorry?
They went to demonstrate. There's lots of different groups went to demonstrate in Chicago, and the leaders of those groups were put on trial because of everything blowing up, and it's basically a massive like corruption and mistrust in police scandal.
Looks like they just released a documentary about it. When did all this go down? Do you know?
7.
Yeah, it says 1969 trial.
67. Yeah. 67.
So this isn't something recent. This is oh crap! This is directed by Aaron Sorkin. I might check that documentary out. Just Aaron Sorkin, West Wing, like a Newsroom.
Okay, I've heard of them. I've not seen them.
Just to bring things back,
doing a tier list, guys.
I would just cap off this album and say it does just mirroring basically with Jack, you saying it kind of being almost like released to confront a leak. It does in some places feel like almost like patchworked. And again, if I was to point out flaws, I would say that the different elements maybe detract from the consistency of it as an album. But those little sidelines that they go off to are so fucking good for me. Which is why I'm willing to overlook maybe that it doesn't sound as consistent or flow as well as the first two.
Good segue into top threes. Hattie, give us your top three for Steal This Album.
Yeah, I mean, this was tough. Again, another reinforcement for this album being so good. It was very hard to kind of narrow it down. But if I was going to say top three, probably going to go with Innervision. Fucking love that song.
My top.
Yeah, it's just so good. And one of the heavier tracks on the album, not like heavy, but like it kicks you in the fucking face at the same time. Highway Song, yeah, just beautiful. And then another mellow one, but again, just so kind of like deep and thoughtful. Streamline, what a closer! And the vocals on this track, amazing. I wasn't there for you,
dude. That's it. Mine's actually similar to yours. Innervision top. I put Chicken Stew in there because
what?
I know I liked. So to be honest, I put it in there more for the sort of anti-consumerist message that it has.
The lyrics.
Yeah. It was a bit more clear. I think those lyrics, which later on I find we're going to get into it with Mesmerize and Hypnotize. The lyrics become almost like you can't really like sympathize with them. You can't really feel it as much, or even relate. They're a lot less relatable to me, like I find, than whereas this was a little bit more relatable. And streamline that 5/4 rhythm. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
yeah, the weird time signature. I think it's in the chorus.
Yeah, so
love a weird time signature. So yeah, that was in there. Jack, give us your top 3 for Steal This Album.
Okay. I have a top 3 and then 4 honorable mentions.
Yeah. So top 7 of a 16 album track. Yeah.
So I have Highway Song because it's just so good. It almost transcends the band itself. It's like.
So would this be your favorite song from them? I'm not mad if you say yes.
I'm trying to think of a better one. It probably would be. Yeah. Like I would say if this is the top, then there's a lot of songs kind of sat on the ledge below it. But it's almost like not heavy enough to be System, but at the same time it is, and it doesn't have like the lyrical content, but it's got the lyrical deepness. Like it's almost
That guitar ding 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 near the end, so fucking good.
And the way the tiny like progressions in the verse have it stepping up and stepping up and stepping up, and then you hit that release. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Fuck the System is the second best track on the album, and Hattie's wrong about that.
Who are you guys?
Ego Brain.
Don't lump me in with him. I have the same thoughts. Well, fuck the System. As
no, but you put
Science.
Yeah, but you put Chicken Stew in your top 3. So
like fuck the System's a good song. I don't know what you're on about. Fuck the System's a good song. It's an interesting song to listen to.
Yeah, again, it's like obviously System of a Down always have the eccentric and they splice it in, but that track is just on the full kind of eccentric weird side, which doesn't do it for me. Yeah,
I need to. Yeah, that's about it.
No,
and yeah, Ego
it's
Brain.
Too much of that element, but fair enough.
Ego Brain.
That is a tune.
Those vocals, mate. They bring in. Okay, yeah. Honorable mentions. Probably no surprise. Innovision, Theta Waves, which I'm surprised no one had in their lists. Streamline and REA.
That would be an honourable mention for me. Oh, and Mr. Jack actually is an honourable mention. Hey, Mr. Jack.
Well, I thought Mr. Jack.
There's so many good tracks on this album. Come on.
It was so hard to pick a top 3, and yeah, Mr. Jack to me was a bit more like a Psycho, but it was almost like the male version of Psycho, where it's like, yeah, I could picture this frustrated guy who's going to an office because what I thought the song was about was basically a dude who loses it and ends up in a shootout with the police. And again, like I could picture that guy and like I could almost relate to that.
Right. So it's like the male equivalent to Psycho.
Yeah, to Psycho.
And that's another great track because it does the kind of mellow light verse to heavy chorus thing they do perfectly. Again, you're getting another.
Yeah. I think when it comes to Mesmerize and Hypnotize, pretty much all of the songs that I absolutely loved on there were doing that thing where in the chorus they'll like drop out the heaviness, they'll go clean guitars. We'll get into it, but they go clean guitars. They'll almost even go into like halftime with the drums, and they'll just like mellow it out, and then like punch you in the face back into the verse.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into Mesmerize.
Let's get into it. Mesmerize.
Dennis.
So, I thought the riffs were great in this, but as we've mentioned,
where do we? Oh, we all put this at the bottom, didn't we?
We all put this
as a scratch CD.
All put this as scratch CD.
I actually, I don't know if this is ironic or fitting, but I actually own a scratched CD of Mesmerize and Hypnotize.
You scratched it yourself.
Yeah.
He scratched it with how mediocre it was.
Yeah. I came back 5 years later as a stroppy teen. No. Probably, unfortunately, from playing it so much.
Why is that too much, Darren? Fuck.
having my CD player jog while I skate back from Solly Joel.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually enjoy this album. Like I enjoyed listening to this album like quite a lot. And even when it came to like picking a top 3, it was hard because there are again like quite a few like really great songs on this album and the next album. It's just Darren singing. It's so annoying.
Old school like, Hollywood.
Oh my god. Ugh. Jesus Christ. And,
by far their worst song on any album.
Easily. easily. It's almost
Yeah.
like a Scars on Broadway song, which is I couldn't listen to Scars on Broadway, just because I couldn't stand Darren's voice. Now, I also think that the lyrics on Mesmerize become a little bit less relatable. I mean, I get that Serge is an artist. He's got an artist's heart. He basically writes abstract poetry.
Did he cock shame you by saying his cock is bigger than yours?
I got a bit of cock envy.
Yeah. You're like, well, this would have been clapped here because he started talking about his wang size.
Hey, look, that's if there's ever a universal equalizer, is that nobody's cock but Serge's can walk out the door by itself. You know, it's a truth we all had to come to terms with in 2005.
Yeah.
So the lyrics seem to be a sticking point for you then.
Yeah, they're just a bit like it's harder to relate. It's almost like it felt like I couldn't understand what these lyrics were without knowing the person who wrote them intimately. For instance,
you're right. Yeah.
For instance, on Violent Pornography, the lyrics are that's the one that's like
everybody
sucks. Everybody. But the chorus is like it's a non-stop disco. Bet you it's Nabisco. Bet you didn't know.
Yeah, I do like that.
Let me slow that down. It's a non-stop disco. Bet you it's Nabisco. Bet you didn't know. Now, I have no idea what Nabisco is.
Neither do I.
Now, I googled it. Apparently, they're a cookie manufacturer. They make cookies. So look, like, if you don't live in the US, you're not going to get that hands down. And even if you did live in the US, what does Nabisco mean to whoever wrote this? I don't know if Serge or Darren wrote this, but what does Nabisco mean? What does that like represent? So
I'm taking a look. I mean, kind of based on what we were saying earlier, like talking about like kind of them pushing like a message and being quite political. Looking at this album, I'm kind of saying, what Soldier Side, BYOB, maybe Cigaro, maybe it's going to be a small section of the album that goes into like the political aspect.
And remember,
whether you like that or not, but there's a lot of like Dennis is saying, there's a lot of songs that are just kind of ridiculous, the lyrical content.
Even with Soldier Side, it's not the full version of Soldier Side, so you don't actually have any of the political influence in it.
And it's not even necessarily addressing like specific issues. Like say if you go to Steal This Album, that there's what's it on? But there's songs like Boom where they're talking about specific examples with like US politics. There's not really, aside from BYOB, I think there's not really any specific political examples. It's just general things. Anyway, sorry Dennis to cut you off, but I just wanted to echo your point.
Cheers. I was pretty much done on that. Let's go to Jack. Jack,
hi.
Why did you put this on Scratch CD?
Yeah, and specifically for you, it was in a tier of its own compared to us, which kind of put the Hypnotize on the same level, which is interesting.
We lumped them both together.
So you specifically thought this was the worst.
I had them both together to begin with, but then what changed about Hypnotize, which I assume we'll have a fight about in a couple of minutes, is all of the randomness and the kind of discontinuity between it made it more refreshing to go back and listen to than Mesmerize. Probably at the time, I would have liked an equal amount of tracks from both of them. I might even still now, to be honest. But yeah, going back and listening now, Mesmerize, I felt like I knew where it was going. I felt like it was the more run-of-the-mill rock record.
I think the complete opposite, but
yeah, because I mean, I'll try and keep it about Mesmerize, but like stuff like the radio video, like this, that could have easily been a band that wasn't System releasing that. Violent Pornography could have been the same. Sad Statue could have been the same. Both the Hollywoods, and then like by the time you've racked up that's with the intro, that's half the album. Whereas at least with if you're gonna like, there are definitely downsides to this album as well. I'm not being a complete knight in shining armor for it, but
yeah. It does feel a lot shorter, doesn't it? I would say Hypnotize feels a lot longer, but for me, that came from the fact that kind of a lot more of it blended. While I thought with this album there was more, it kind of went into different areas more. But 100%, this album felt so much shorter, even though the time must be 5-10 minutes difference, maybe.
Yeah, it's minimal.
Yeah, they're basically equal time wise.
Yeah,
I think I think what the best you can say about them is that when they hit, they hit. That
I agreed.
BYOB to Cigaro, This Cocaine, Question, fantastic half an album there. When we go through Hypnotize, I'll be able to pick a few tracks off there. I feel like if they'd waited till 2006 and then released an album that was the best of both these, it would be a completely different conversation.
That's one of the, I mean, that's one of the things that kind of boggles my mind. It kind of it really kind of reinforces almost like the kind of the fighting forces within the band, because how the fuck can you go from a song like Question into like old school Hollywood? I know they're not back to back, but like it just feels like so opposite in terms of like musical directions or ways they wanted to take the album. So it kind of feels like there's such like a conflict within the band. Hypnotize less so.
Yeah,
kind of feels like
those last two tracks, like Jack said, it literally sounds like a different band. It sounds like Scars on Broadway.
Yeah, it's kind of I can't listen to the album without getting the association of them trying to make a good album with the formula that they had before, but also Darren taking over and doing those songs that, you know, doing those songs where he's leading and really like get on my nerves.
Yeah, it's similar to like the first sort of topic discussion that we had, which is like should a band like choose to evolve? And it's like this band, they evolved, but in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
they had a formula, they had a good formula.
Yeah,
and someone in the band did not want to stick to that good formula.
Yeah, I mean, just to summarize my thoughts. I mean, again, I'm mirroring a lot of what you guys said. I think it's the most like polished album, say production wise. Probably too much. You know, they hit a sweet spot with Toxicity and Still This Album. Probably Toxicity was the sweetest spot, but I did like listening to it. You know, I think, you know, there's a lot of varied songs. I thought it was interesting, Jack, that you said with this you kind of knew where it was going, but Hypnotize you didn't. I felt the opposite. I found with this it kind of went in so many different directions in terms of that almost like those fight between the two different musical directions were like really present. But on Hypnotize they weren't as much. But yeah, I mean, look, Darren should not be like singing the majority of the vocals, or, you know, it seems like he's doing 60-40. It definitely has more higher highs than Hypnotize. Like the standout tracks stand out a lot more for me, but the tracks that are like weak are fucking terrible. And Hypnotize is more consistent, but doesn't necessarily have anything that stands out. So I think that's why I got the balance. You know, one high highs, low lows, and the other's just in the middle.
Can we quickly do our top threes and then move on to Hypnotize, because I want to refute what Hattie just said.
Yeah,
but I don't want to derail us.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I've summarized my main thoughts on it.
So my top track is Question. Love the polyrhythmic verse. I think it's like partly 5/8 or something, and which is one of the reasons why this is my top track, is because, so let me remind myself how this goes. It goes. I'll try and make it's like sweet berries ready for to go, so no different from you, and that's where that weird polyrhythmic thing comes from. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I wonder what was written first. Were the lyrics written first, or was the riff written first? Now, knowing Serge, I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote that lyrics just because he wanted like a song with an interesting song structure, and then the riff was sort of written around it. And because of the way that the main verse play, like basically it goes into just regular 4/4 during the chorus, you know, dreaming. That makes me think that the chorus was basically just like cut pasted on to like this like interesting 5/8 polyrhythmic thing. So that makes me think the lyrics came first, and then that riff was sort of written around it, and then the rest of the song was like built upon that, which is
Maybe.
yeah, which is sort of like what's interesting about it. Number two, sad statue. Love the way that the guitars go clean, and then the drum beat and the guitars
Jack's
during the
face.
chorus, and this cocaine. Come at me, Jack. What's your top three?
What? Cocaine?
This cocaine.
That's one of the weakest, bro.
You've listened to. I mean, that's just insane. That's for first off. You're both losing your goddamn mind. You've gone onto an album with BYOB, Revenger, Cigaro as the opening tracks,
how
and
did
you've
you not put
picked
BYOB
Sad
in there?
Statue for a top three track.
I knew you fanboys were gonna say like bring those up anyway, so I thought, let me go a bit left field.
When you picked at best middle of the album.
Yeah, BYOB is an auto include, man. It's not as overplayed as Chop Suey, but it's one of their like most memorable songs for a fucking reason.
True. I overplayed it. I think I played it way too much when I was younger.
You killed it off yourself.
Yeah.
I'll go next if you don't.
Yeah, go for it. Go.
So, question, without question, the best track on the album, definitely. Revenger, second, because I feel like I've hit such a sweet spot with this track of between having overplayed and not played enough, because this was my go-to AMV track when I was a teenager and making AMVs of shows. So I've listened to it loads, but not so much outside of that. And BYOB, because it's BYOB, like
decent, a better top three than Dennis by a considerable margin, Jack. So my top three, BYOB is fucking just brutal in your face, like just you can't dislike this track. So fucking good.
Why do they always send a poor?
Second question as again auto include, it has to be in there, like definitely like the deepest, most emotional track, and going along with the theme I've had so far. I love System when they're kind of kind of introspective, both musically and lyrically. And then see, this is why I knew this album was quite low, because it was hard to pick a third, but not necessarily for good reasons. Maybe my third favorite would be.
You struggled for a third good track. It's not that bad.
No, it's not that bad. But there was a few that I was kind of debating over, and upon re-listens, I kind of ended up disliking some and liking more. It was a very changeable album for me. Probably Radio Video would be my third favorite. I kind of again, it was a good track where they kind of shared vocal duties, and it incorporated those kind of weird elements with the kind of slow like polka thing. I liked it. But that third place could change on a given day.
I've gone, I've gone the other way with Radio Video. As when this album first came out, that was one of the tracks where I was like, this is fucking banger. I'm playing this all day. I loved it. Now, upon re-listening, after not having listened for a little bit, I couldn't get back into it.
Okay.
But I feel like on a different day, I could definitely get back up to it.
It's one of the, I don't know, it's them being weird, but a good, consistent weird for me, as opposed to kind of like an annoying weird like they got on like Cigaro, for example, or this cocaine. Those are two.
You think Cigaro? Wait a minute. Is that the overarching like feeling you're left with after Cigaro and this cocaine is like annoying weird?
Yeah, I liked Cigaro like back in the day, but on a re-listen now, it's just like not feeling it at all.
I'm surprised. I would have thought you'd actually like that, because Cigaro, I thought the subject matter reminded me a lot of what's that movie with Christian Bale with the meme?
American Psycho.
And I know you used to rate that.
Yeah, I love that film. One of the best. It's just like re-listening to it. Like Darren's at his most whiniest when he comes in. He's like, "My God, it's just so grating, man."
I'll give you that. Final thoughts on Mesmerize? Jack, did you want us to move on to Hypnotize so that you could tell
I
us
can't
what we're
remember
wrong?
why, but yeah.
Yeah. So we'll move on.
All right, Hypnotize, the other side of this double album. I've got it on scratch CD. Again, there are a lot of songs on here that I liked. I think similar to Jack, Jack put these on two different tiers. I preferred Hypnotize to Mesmerize. I think there are slightly better songs on this, partly because some of the songs on Mesmerize I thought were sort of, I don't know, written to sort of be singles, written to be catchy.
Hands down, it's more consistent as an album.
Well, Hypnotize.
Yeah. Consistent with Mesmerize.
Right. Yeah.
It was nowhere near as good as self-titled, which is why I had it a tier below. But it would it's a better album.
Consistent in what way? How do you mean? It's a more consistent album.
Consistent in terms of there weren't as many tracks that like annoyed me, and the kind of it felt like it was crafted as an album better in terms of Mesmerize. Yeah, like I said, there were like standout singles and stuff, and there were just tracks that really put me off. But while this, again, it was almost like kind of the first album in terms of tracks. Some tracks kind of blended into the other, and I got a bit bored. There wasn't anything that really annoyed me besides maybe She's Like Heroin. It's probably like the only track that I really didn't like.
There are 2 more tracks on Hypnotize than Mesmerize.
Yeah, it feels like a longer album.
But I think probably there's probably some things where just our like Venn diagrams of enjoyment aren't lining up, because knowing what I know about your listening to Jet Pilot, how do you feel about Attack?
Me?
Yeah. Because to me, they're fairly similar.
Yeah, I quite like it as an opening. Yeah.
I've eventually.
It's not one of my favorite tracks.
I liked Attack to begin with when I first started listening to the album, but as time has gone on, I've started to not like that album. It's not like that particular song more and more. It just seems obvious. It seems like an obvious mosh pit song,
and starkly different to starting off with Soldier Side intro.
Yeah, and I wouldn't compare it to Jet Pilot either, because Jet Pilot's kind of like interesting and weird, whereas this is I think a bit more sort of generic.
It's for me it's a mid-tier album track. It's nothing notable, but it's okay.
Whereas I wasn't picking that out to be
right. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, but just to be like, I feel like there's a couple of tracks there where like I'm more on the side of it, because I think that. Oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, you were saying that the highs of Mesmerize were better than the highs of Hypnotize.
Yeah, well, so like I said, my why I ended up putting them on the same tier was that I found like the best tracks of Mesmerize were better, but the worst tracks are worse. And this album kind of sat in that middle in terms of there was nothing that I really enjoyed, but nothing that I really hated. It was just.
I would argue. I'm going to give you a sneak peek
besides Sheets Like Heroin, I hated that track.
A sneak peek of my top 3, and I would say Dreaming and Holy Mountains could easily go toe for toe with any of Question, Revenger, BYOB.
Yeah, I would disagree. Holy Mountains, maybe, not Dreaming.
Not Dreaming. The song structure in Dreaming was really, really cool, and the way it does the verse in stereo, where that's really, I found that really interesting.
I feel like a lot of Mesmerize is like they've had to think about a system like kind of live show, and they've condensed it down. And then Hypnotize is like they've had to think about a system album, and they've like tried to pull as much as they can, but it's ended up like a bit spread.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, 100%.
So you agree with Hadi in that they should have waited till 2006 and just threw away half the songs on this and released.
That's what you said. That's what you said.
Yeah, I'd agree with myself though. I'm definitely right.
Give yourself one back pat.
Yeah. When I said that, I was very clever.
So I want to get to why Jack put this on gold, but Hattie, first of all, tell Jack what you didn't like. I mean, you've already sort of gone into detail.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give a quick summary. I mean, like I said, it definitely feels less like, like Jack said, it feels, or like you both said, it's less reliant on like hooks or big sounds, songs like BYOB or whatever that would stand out and work well live. So it's more of a darker album, or more of an album that kind of stays within the same genre lane, perhaps more. There's more Surge. I would say arguably Surge is a bit more prominent on more of the songs, which I like. But there weren't, coming out of it upon a re-listen, it wasn't that memorable, while Mesmerize had the highs that were memorable. So
I just realized that Darren does the intro vocals to kill rock and roll, and he does kill the rock and roll on this double album.
I mean, there's a few tracks where again he's just kind of just doing his thing. But when you look at like Attack, Dreamin', Hypnotize, Holy Mountains, these are all like Surge dominant songs, right? And that's nothing but a pleasure to hear again, coming from a lot of Mesmerize.
So Jack, what made you put this on gold?
I would like to put forward, I'm going back on what I said earlier, and I would like to put forward that we make some kind of tier between broken CD, scratch CD, and gold. Because I definitely don't think this is a gold record. I may even...
Oh, so you would say scratch gold?
Yeah, I would rather take both of these albums down a level than bring Mesmerize up.
Yeah.
So put something in between scratch to the CD and participation ribbon as well.
Yeah, I don't know if we can, like a 6-tier system might be a bit much, but I just wanted to emphasize it's not that much better than Mesmerize. I'm not saying that this is like the difference between the gulf between Hypnotize and Toxicity in my ranking is
because when I look at your rankings and see them in that order, it does look a bit strange, with obviously Toxicity being so much better quality, right? We were all going to agree with that.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's fine.
What I will say though, like
so that's enough.
The side of system that I'm more enjoying now. When I was a kid, I lost my shit for all the the heaviness and the screaming and the metal elements of the stuff. What I'm really liking now, when I go back, are the stuff like the Ufig character that's in there, and the Holy Mountains, the more vicinity of obscenity a bit, the weirder side of it, the side where they're more playing around with things, whereas
everything's not just the heavy songs, basically. Songs that kind of have a bit of an odd flavor to them.
For me, that's what pushes it over. I think if I had to look objectively and not subjectively, it would be difficult to make the argument for this being a better album given the hits that Mesmerize has.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So again, coming back to my views, there's nothing on this album that beats BYOB in Question.
Holy Mountains and Ufig.
No.
Yeah, I would put Ufig and Hypnotize, even Dreaming, above BYOB.
Well, should we do top threes?
Let's do a top three. Go ahead and kick it off, Hattie.
Yeah, okay, so my top three for this album. So, Hypnotize is going to be in there, the title track. Great track again, kind of Surge-led track. Again, you've got the kind of light and dark, harmonized chorus, a good classic system track. Holy Mountains as well, like I said, I don't think it reaches the highs of tracks on Mesmerize, but it's a standout track that kind of is more brooding. And then third favorite, I really liked the full version of Soldier Side. Actually, I found it was a really nice closer, and I don't know. It's cool to take those tracks together, and I know I guess the way it's placed with Soldier Side intro being at the start, it's almost like this album's got to be listened before Mesmerize. You know what I mean? If you were going to listen to it as a double,
I thought the order was you're supposed to listen to this first and then the next one.
Yeah, kind of. But
No,
but this album came out afterwards, so the closer of the Soldier Side closer here then goes to the Soul Side intro on Mesmerize.
I assumed that was the intended like listening order though.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's intended so it's a cycle, almost like an endless loop type thing. But yeah, it is a really good closer. I liked it, and again, a nice. These guys work so well when they're like singing together. So yeah, that's my top 3.
Jack, shoot. Or not.
Sorry, no, I've done a quick Google while you're saying that.
You're looking at the order of
Mesmerize definitely released first.
100%. Yeah. And I was trying to find if there was any intention for it. Okay. Old School Hollywood was written after playing in a celebrity baseball game for charity.
That makes sense why they've got so many baseball references.
Yeah,
that game should never have happened.
What's more relatable to your fan base as System of a Down than a charity baseball game?
You said that like have you seen the South Park? Oh, we're digressing here, but have you seen the South Park where they parody the BP oil spill, and it's like the oil spill that happened is an accident that should never have happened.
Oh yeah, like the we're sorry episode, right?
Yeah, that's the
one. Okay, my top 3 I don't think will be any surprise following our recent discussions, but you think Holy Mountains Dreaming.
Yeah, I'm with you on there, Jack. Dreaming was my top.
Surge.
You think wasn't one that stood out to me at all, so that's quite surprising to me how much you picked that up. But I'm not mad.
From back in the days, you think stood out to me. My favorite part of it is just the way that the chorus goes to halftime with the guitars. So it just like calms down, and it slows down a little bit, and it just gives you that space to breathe, and then it goes back into it.
No one's gonna cause a huge trigger by saying she's like heroin. Then
no.
The old school Hollywood of this album. I loved
that shit when I was a kid, but no, definitely not anymore.
So yeah, Dreaming, unique song structure. I love how the verses like in stereo, where you get like one, like Serge's voice in one and Darren's in the other, and it's a bit confusing and it's a bit like out there, but I think it works. And yeah, Hypnotize with you, Hattie. But again, with Hypnotize, the way that the guitars go clean, and then it's just in the chorus where the guitars go clean, and it's just the guitars and the drums. John how do you say it? Dolmayan?
Gonna have the Armenian.
I've never known how to say this, except for Serge Tankian.
I think it's Dolmayan.
Dolmayan. It does say Dolmayan, so I'm going to say Dolmayan.
All right.
I'm surprised he doesn't get pulled up in like top drummers, because you think of top drummers, you think even like Joey Jordison from Slipknot, he gets thrown up in there.
Right.
I've heard the Korn drummer being actually no, with Korn it's more fieldy. But I'm surprised. From this era, I'm surprised that John Dolmayan doesn't get as much respect as he deserves.
He's also been the most vocal member for the past 15 years in getting back together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, the rest of them have all been pretty like, it's never off the cards, but we're not doing it, kind of thing. And the drummer's just been there like, yeah, I'll fucking do it. Give us a fuck. Let's go and do it again. Yeah, it was fun.
There's a just re-listening. There's an awesome like instrumental, like kind of like high pitched like guitar and drum break on Hypnotize. That's just one of the standout moments on the album.
Is that in the chorus?
It's after one of the choruses. It's like before the final chorus, but it's
oh really yeah. Is it the one where it's like,
yeah, so fucking good, and the drums are going wild there as well.
Yeah. After that little bit, it just comes in and just hits you in the. It's almost like,
and then it goes back into the chorus, like the final chorus. So fucking epic.
Yeah, such a good song. Yeah. So any final thoughts on Hypnotize?
Not on Hypnotize, but I would like to go through some fantastic lyrics.
Yep.
Some of them you will have definitely picked out yourself over the years. A couple of them are a little harder to understand.
Is this genuinely like your favorite lyrics?
No, these are I mean, some of them are definitely. These would be up there in my favorite lyrics, but there's also quite like poignant lyrics that I like that aren't on this list.
Yeah.
So in Sweet Pea, it's also some of them are vocal delivery when he's got because everyone needs a mother. Fucker! Didn't see it coming. Never see it coming. And it, flip the meaning. Fantastic. Good shit. This cocaine. I hope this is your stepson doesn't eat the fish. Loads to pick out from that particular song, but that's probably the first one that I understood when I first listened to the song. I was like, wait, this is fucking weird. I had to go back and listen to the rest of them. The delivery and content of banana, 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 terracotta, banana, terracotta, terracotta pie, vicinity of obscenity. Probably the hypest moment of the entire Hypnotize album. By the time it comes back around and you know what's going to happen, banging.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild song.
Possibly a deep cut, depending, you know, how much you were paying attention in Toxicity, especially the first tracks. Needles, all about tapeworm. So my tapeworm tells me what to do. My tapeworm tells me where to go. Pull the tapeworm out of your ass. Hey. As Barry's going, pull the tapeworm out of your ass. Hey.
Hey.
Yeah. Top quality shit. I had that question line that Dennis pulled out as well. Sweet berries. I'm not going to try and sing it. Sweet berries ready for ghosts are different than you. Yeah. Sweet berries ready for two ghosts are no different from you. It's not real words.
Are you dreaming?
Then also has
so much political meaning right there.
Also has that mind delusions when he's just like given the shouting in the background and he's there going mind delusions activated, bubbles erotica, plutonium wedding rings, icicle stretchings, bicycle shoestrings, one flag, flaggy but one, painting the paintings of the alive. Back into vowels for the chorus. That was probably the most fun I had listening to or re-listening to all these albums. Was listening to the music and stuff was all good, and having the nostalgia was great, but getting back through and just discovering just how fucking weird these people's brains are, and especially Serge when he gets right in.
Yeah, I was going to say it was interesting re-listening in preparation for the podcast. It was funny to kind of go back and have so many choruses or things stand out where I'd be like lip syncing it, lip syncing the wildest kind of stupid lyrics and be like, fuck, I remember this like it hasn't been a day.
Yeah, just the muscle memory kicks in.
Chop Suey has almost 600 million views on on Spotify.
I think the music video has nearly 1 billion views on YouTube, which is nuts.
It kind of feels like it would be like a meme song at this point.
Yeah,
I feel like it is, and the way the video's shot, like with the camera here, or like here, and like looking down on them, following it, that's definitely been used for other stuff.
Yeah.
Also, this is a bit off topic, but I don't want to forget it. When we were talking about gorillas last week, I got a notification from that app that Hadi told me to download that gorillas are doing a streamed live show that you can buy tickets to. So kind of combining our
based
our
on
topic discussion with our album review from before.
If there's any band that's going to do it, it's a fucking virtual band, right? You've got to. You've got to.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we wrap this up then, boys?
Yeah, man.
Sounds good, so Dad.
That was it. The tier list. Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? Let us know. I guess we're going to be on YouTube, so comment below if you feel that strongly.
Another again, just looking for it. Another one where I thought like the broad strokes of our rankings are very similar. Probably the only exception is going to be that self-titled disparity between me and you and Jack. But everything else kind of fits in the same order, which is interesting.
Yeah, you nearly got them all right.
Cool.
We'll also be on some audio podcast delivering system soon as well.
So yeah, download up, subscribe to our podcast once the stream becomes available.
Yeah, we'll let you guys know.
Right. Thanks a lot, guys,
Cool.
and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Later.
Peace.
Later.